Luna. No, stop. The scream tore through the midday air like a siren. Ray Collins looked up from his spot on the sidewalk just in time to see a small girl, maybe 6 years old, darting between the crowd, her ponytail bouncing, pink sneakers flashing. She was laughing. Oblivious. The crosswalk light was red. The traffic was moving. Ray's heart stopped. He didn't think. He didn't have time to. The girl was heading straight into the path of a black SUV making a fast left turn. People screamed. Others froze. Ray moved. He shoved his notebook and thermos aside, his body reacting before his mind could catch up. The prosthetic leg didn't bend right, it never did, but he pushed off the pavement anyway, his left knee burning, every old injury screaming in protest. In 2 staggering strides, he reached her. He wrapped both arms around her tiny frame and twisted his body mid-fall, slamming both of them onto the concrete just as the SUV's bumper clipped his side. Metal screeched. Tires skidded. Horns blared. Then silence. Luna, the mother sobbed, falling to her knees beside them. Her hands were shaking as she pulled the child into her arms. The little girl was crying now, scared but unharmed. Ray groaned, rolling slightly to his side, his breath ragged. His prosthetic had snapped at the joint and lay twisted behind him. His elbow was scraped raw. His ribs throbbed. But the girl was safe. That's all that mattered. He sat upright slowly, ignoring the ring of curious onlookers and the phones now pointed at him. Someone muttered, "Jesus, is he homeless?" Another voice said, "Is that a fake leg?" But Ray didn't hear them. His ears were ringing too loud. 10 minutes earlier, he'd been invisible. Just another guy on the sidewalk with a cardboard sign. USMC veteran, anything helps. God bless. No one looked twice. They never did. Some glanced. Some turned away. Some walked by fast, headphones in, avoiding eye contact like it might cost them money. Ray didn't blame them. That was the world now. He had been there for hours. Same spot every weekday, outside the 8th Street parking garage downtown. Shade around noon. Foot traffic heavy during lunch break. Most people didn't stop. Some tossed $1. Others a sandwich. Most nothing. He didn't ask for more. He wrote quietly in his small notebook, things he remembered, things he'd lost. Not because he hoped to publish anything, but because it kept the ghosts at bay. Afghanistan. 2006. The heat. The dust. The moment the IED took his right leg below the knee. The silence afterward. Then came the medals. The discharge. The painkillers. The job that lasted 3 months. The apartment that lasted 6. And eventually, the sidewalk. A medic kneeled beside him now, checking his side. "You alright, sir? You took that hit like a freight train." Ray nodded once. "Just bruised. Save your gear for someone who needs it." The woman, the child's mother, looked at him, eyes full of disbelief and something deeper. "Gratitude. You saved her," she whispered. Ray looked down at his hands. They were scraped and bleeding. "She didn't see the car," he said. "I did." As they loaded him into the ambulance, just to be safe, they insisted, someone asked for his name. "Ray Collins," he said, eyes closing for a moment against the harsh sun. And in the crowd, a police officer paused. His brows furrowed. "Ray Collins? Bronze Star recipient, 3rd Marine Division." Ray opened one eye. That was a lifetime ago. The officer nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time people remembered. Ray leaned back against the stretcher, the sirens wailing faintly in the distance now. For the first time in years. He wasn't invisible. He was just a man, hurt, tired, bleeding. But seen. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something. The hospital smelled like bleach and plastic. The kind of sterile scent that clung to skin and memory. Ray lay in the narrow bed of room 407, staring at the speckled ceiling tiles. The hum of fluorescent lights above him was steady. Familiar. Not so different from the VA facilities he'd bounced through over the years. His ribs were bruised. His prosthetic cracked. Elbow bandaged. But otherwise, intact. Lucky, the nurse had said. Ray didn't believe in luck. He believed in instinct. Training. And pain. Especially pain. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. A woman stepped in, clutching a cup of coffee in both hands like it was armor. She was maybe in her mid-30s, business skirt, hair pulled back tight, but her eyes were soft and rimmed with guilt. It was her. The mother. "Hi," she said, voice gentle. "I wasn't sure you'd want visitors, but I brought this." She placed the cup on the bedside table. The smell of cinnamon and vanilla drifted upward. Ray nodded once. "She okay?" "Yes. Perfectly fine. Not a scratch on her." Her voice broke just slightly. "Thanks to you." He looked away. "Would have been worse if I'd hesitated. But you didn't." Silence settled in. She sat in the plastic chair beside his bed. "I didn't get your name that day," she said after a while. "Ray. Ray Collins. I'm Julia. My daughter's name is Luna." Another pause. Then she added, "You're a veteran, aren't you?" He gave a small nod. "Marine Corps. 20 years ago. Feels longer." They said something about a medal. "Bronze Star." "I didn't keep the medal. Just the scar tissue." She didn't laugh, just looked at him like she wanted to say something more but didn't know how. Later that evening, the nurse came in holding a small stack of letters. "These came for you." Ray raised a brow. Letters? He hadn't received mail in years. She placed them in his lap. One envelope had crayon scribbles on it, "To Mr. Ray, the hero," with a heart drawn over the O. Another was from the local police department. Another from the mayor's office. Another from a veterans advocacy group. Ray blinked at them. His fingers hovered over the paper like it was something fragile. The nurse smiled softly. "You've made an impression, Mr. Collins." The next morning, a reporter knocked on the door. Ray didn't want a camera. Or quotes. Or a headline. "I'm not a story," he said flatly. "I'm just a man who didn't walk away." But the city didn't seem to agree. By the end of the week, someone had set up a GoFundMe. By the next, the total passed $40,000. A local news anchor aired a segment, "From Street to Savior, the homeless hero who saved a life." Ray hated the word homeless. He preferred displaced. He preferred human. And then came the letter. Delivered by hand. From the Veterans Housing Initiative, a non-profit that offered fully furnished apartments to former servicemen. The note was short. "You saved a little girl's life. Let us help you rebuild yours. One key. No strings." Taped to the letter was a small gold key. Apartment 2C. West Side Towers. Rent-free for 1 year. Job training. Health benefits. Ray sat on the edge of his hospital bed, staring at it for a long, long time. He didn't cry. But something loosened in his chest. For the first time in years, someone saw him. Not the sign. Not the limp. Not the missing leg. Him. Ray Collins. A man who still had something to give. The morning of the ceremony, Ray stood in front of the mirror in apartment 2C. It was the first mirror he'd looked into in years. His suit, donated, altered, and pressed, fit better than expected. He tugged at the collar like it didn't quite belong to him. His clean-shaven face looked like a stranger. His hair, once tangled and wild, was combed back neatly. His prosthetic was replaced, shinier now, and working like it should. No more duct tape, no more limp. He looked whole. Still quiet. Still Ray. But standing straighter. Downstairs, a black SUV waited. A city vehicle. With a driver. When he stepped out, the building manager clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Proud of you, sir." It still surprised Ray, the way people spoke to him now. With respect. Like he'd always deserved it, and they'd only just remembered. The ceremony was held at the city park. Hundreds had gathered. Parents, veterans, city officials, local news, and children holding paper flags. There was even a brass band, mostly high schoolers, but they played like it mattered. A podium stood beneath the oak tree where Ray used to sleep during the warmer months. Now, a banner hung above it. To those who served, and still serve. Julia was there. Luna sat on her shoulders, waving. When Ray stepped up to the microphone, a hush fell over the crowd. He cleared his throat. Took a breath. "I don't like speeches." A ripple of laughter. "I'm not used to attention, either. Most of my life, I've stayed out of the way. Even when I wore the uniform. I didn't fight for medals. I fought to protect the person beside me. That instinct never left." He paused. A little girl ran into traffic. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I felt ready. He looked out over the crowd, his voice low but steady. "You don't need a home to have a heart. You don't need a rank to do what's right. And you sure as hell don't need a title to save a life." When he finished, the applause wasn't polite. It was thunderous. Luna ran up to him, arms outstretched. She handed him a drawing, a stick figure with a cape and one metal leg. Above it, the words, "My hero Ray." That evening, back at his new apartment, Ray placed the drawing in a frame. Not the medals. Not the newspaper clippings. Not the check from the mayor's office. Just that drawing. A reminder. That even when the world forgets you, a single moment of courage can make it remember again. Forever. He never asked for recognition. But the day he risked everything for a stranger, the city gave him something far greater than a medal. They gave him his name back.
Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved you a bit, leave something, write a comment, like the video. It helps us grow the channel and create more stories. See you in the next story.